Hello, everyone. Dr. Nikhil Verma here with another edition of Things I Didn't Learn in Med School. This is the third part of the series of the things that I've learned over the past couple of years since I started my practice, some pitfalls, some things I've observed, and other topics that I feel like are important for anyone else that could be curious about the process of starting their own private practice, or at least learning from my experiences, so they don't necessarily have to go through the same experiences. Um, Last time I talked a lot about success and profit and how celebrating others and all that kind of stuff. And I still, hold all that valuable information true to what I was saying. But now I want to kind of go into some nuances that doesn't have a really easy coding, covering umbrella terms and covering everything. So it's kind of a miscellaneous of information that I want to throw out there. So first and foremost, I've talked about this in a lot of my earlier videos, and the concept and the process of getting into insurance credentialing. So as we know, to get paid by certain payers, insurance companies are payers, or that be Medicare, Medicaid, Anthem, Cigna, United Healthcare, and then every state has smaller ones associated. You have to become credentialed with them to be an in network physician, in network provider. And that task that can take quite some time, 6 months, 8 months, maybe longer. And it's not just as simple as sending in an application because some of these insurance companies can say, we're not looking for any more providers in this area. So you could get your credentialing in one area of the state, but not another. And this turns into a problem when you're doing your submitting for billing because they'll come back and say, well, this provider is not under our contract in this area. So, and that can get really confusing. So it's important to keep track of all these. Um, and another thing to keep track of when you are doing these insurance credentialing is keeping a good track of all your contracts that you have with the different insurance companies. Quite often, you don't know what you're getting paid for certain services. Um, and at the end of the year, if you feel like you've done a better service or you're providing a service that someone else in that area is not providing, then that'd be a good area to negotiate with the insurance company of getting a better um, reimbursement for that certain, we'll say, procedure. Or if you're treating a certain patient population, Medicare or Medicaid have these standards of value healthcare that can help you gain extra money for doing those kind of things. This can be wellness checks. This can be um, doing yearly, annual checkups, checking certain blood markers, diabetes management, all these kind of things. I'm not too deep into that field because there's very difficult to get it for specialists, but it has some value if you are a specialist to look into the ones that you may be capable of doing. And you might be doing these already. For example, one is just making sure you're faxing over the notes of a patient to the primary care physician or the referring physician, just so there's a clear line of communication between the two practices. Um, the insurance credentialing, the one to start with is usually Medicare and Medicaid. They can get you in within 30 to 60, maybe 90 days. Some of the other insurances take a long time, as I said. And once you have the Medicare, then a lot of these insurance companies, they pick the data from your Medicare application. Now, I don't want to get too much into the reimbursements. Obviously, Medicare, I'll just talk about it briefly. Medicare is kind of what the standard fee schedules are set around. And Medicaid can be 80% of that, so a little bit less. And then the private insurance companies are 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x. It depends what your contracts are. Um, the bigger the groups, the bigger the contracts, the bigger the negotiating power, the better the reimbursement. So it's something to keep in mind, especially if you're looking for employment and stuff. I want to move on to the next topic of your EHR. There's tons of electronic healthcare record systems and electronic medical systems. I don't know which one's the best. I personally have used one, and I thought it was going to be great for the practice because they offered X, Y, and Z and making billing easier, and they help take care of prior authorizations and all these kind of things. But at the end of the day, it was ending up costing me a lot more money than the value I was getting out of it. These prior authorizations that they were explaining, well, a lot of them were getting denied. I was having to get on peer peers, and I was reviewing how and why they submitted it, and they were submitting them completely wrong. And the billing was even worse because they would submit claims, and then if there's a problem with the claim, I would still have to go backtrack and clean it up, or they would resubmit it without changing anything in the note or telling me. And this would really mess up the appeal process because you only have one maybe two chances to appeal something that was billed incorrectly or not billed at the right level, or there's a tons of reasons why these get denied. But again, there's a bunch of codes that are on the insurance explanation of benefits that will show why they were denied, and sometimes it doesn't state it clearly, so we have to call the insurance company and see why certain claims did get denied. um, EHRs come in different shapes, sizes, forms. They can do everything. They can do little. Um, just note that some have a practice management, meaning scheduling, billing, patient communication, and that kind of stuff built in. Other ones do not. So that's something to realize. Do you need a practice management to go with your medical record system? Um, some cost, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And, obviously you hope that you're paying for something as a good product, good service. Other ones are very cheap, maybe a few $100 a month. And some pay by the month, some pay by collections. That was another problem I was having with my HR. They were paying collections just even if a patient was scheduled and they were paying a self pay. Somehow that this medical record system thought it was okay just to take a percentage of a patient that was simply just scheduled through their system. Um, don't want to go too much into the rabbit hole about that, but the whole company was just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, very not helpful for me. So, um, and that's the problem though, is if you run into these problems, is what do you do next? Do you hang on to it, try to renegotiate, try to discount services or discontinue services from that system, or do you jump ship? And if you jump ship, just realize it's a long process. It's a hard process because you have to submit new fax numbers, new information, get bank accounts set up for your accounts receivable, and all these steps. And to learn a new software system can take 3 to 6 months or several hours a day just to kind of learn. And honestly, I'll say this: that the cheaper medical record systems or HRs tend to be really easy and kind of intuitive to work with. Um, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing because sometimes they don't capture everything that you want to capture, and they don't do a lot of the other stuff that might be beneficial of registration and billing and patient communication and other things. So food for thought, just something to think about. And that's I learned my lesson, and I hope knock on wood, as I'm switching to another system that I'm not going to run into those same problems. Accounts receivable kind of discussed this. So, say I do procedure today, and I did do procedures today, so it makes it easy for me to kind of calculate this. But these procedures that I did today might take a week for me and my billing team to submit the bill to the insurance company. Might take them anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks to review the claim and see if it's appropriate, see if there's a prior authorization for the procedure, see if X, Y, and Z criteria were met, and then they'll submit the payment and the explanation of benefits. And that might take another week. So a good goal is to keep all your AR accounts receivable under 90 days and keeping track of what money is going out and when you expect these monies to come in. So I know that I did procedures today and I should be waiting about 90 days to get that money back. That can be detrimental if you're running on a really, really lean budget. And I'll give you the example from my own office. I did a lot of procedures at the end of the year because a lot of people were doing end of their deductible. They want to get things done before the holiday or right after the holiday when they have some more downtime. um, whatever reason. And week after week after week, I'm looking at the bank accounts. I'm like, what is going on? Why am I not getting that money? So I went back and looked at some of the procedures I did, and the insurance hasn't even acknowledged that those claims have gotten to them yet. So I was waiting, and then it came back. So if I did my procedures in November and December. I had to wait till almost the third week of April to get a lot of those claims done. So the months of January through March, I was running really lean and trying not to overspend, overdraw my bank account. Not that I'm more of a conscientious, conservative type of person when it comes to that kind of money. So I want to make sure there's enough money in the bank account, pay overhead and pay my staff before I start spending money on other things. Um, and I took out I have a line of credit with the bank, which is beneficial just in case I need a little bit free operating money, or if I need to cover those bills for a week. But it's just not a good feeling to have to go back and forth between those things. Moving on, just developing a name or a logo that took me several months, and I was thinking about it. It kept me up at night, and what I want my message to be, what I want my field to be, what is my message? How am I going to display the practice? How am I going to display myself? Is it going to be something that's catchy? Is it going to be something that's difficult? And all these things come to mind. And developing a logo is not very easy if you're like me and not very artistically inclined to do something like that. Um, Ultimately, I hired a company in Fiverr on Fiverr.com to see what they could do. They kind of were dragging their feet. I got no good leads on it. So eventually, I popped open Adobe, um, one of the programs on Adobe, and was able to make something. Nowadays, I mean, we have AI, we have tons of great artists. I mean, I'm sure you could find someone to make you a great logo, in a name that's you should make it something personal to you that means a lot, or that you find appealing to attract new patients. Next thing, keeping in mind of what services you want to provide. I think a lot of people want to just go out there and start providing everything for everyone all the time. But I think, in my opinion at least, that's not the best way to do things, because you're really drowning yourself out if you're not getting yourself into a niche of this is what I want to treat, this is my bread and butter, and building out from there. Because if you're trying to advertise to too many populations in too many places all at once, then you could really be causing yourself a disruption of how you even have patient continuation of care. Like, they come in and you talk to them, and then across the hall you're talking to someone else, and you're like, wow, that's a completely different thing that has nothing. So, say just, someone comes in for back pain for me, and I'm in the groove talking musculoskeletal injuries and this and that. And then I go across the hall because um, I have an interest in, I don't know, we'll just say endocrine system and diabetes. And now all of a sudden we're talking about diabetes. I mean, it can really throw you off your game. But then also, how am I advertising that out in the public? Am I, come see me for your back pain? Plus, if you have diabetes, come see me as well. Um, it's kind of sending a very mixed message, and I don't know if I would go to a provider that kind of sold me on a lot of different things. And other services provided. Do you have ancillary services? Do you have X-rays? Do you have physical therapy? Do you have massage therapist? Other complementary services? Do you have a pharmacist that can review medications and make sure patients are doing things appropriately and titrating their blood pressure and titrating other medications? And this all depends on what field you're in and what comfortably you want to offer for your patients. But that's something you have to decide. So I started strictly with my interventional stuff, and now I'm kind of building. I do some amputee clinic, that started pretty early as well, and I'm also doing some um, more regenerative medicine, for lack of a better term, at this point, and that's been good. And but it's still in the musculoskeletal realm, so that's helpful. But now I'm giving a lot of pain coaching, where I'm sitting down with my chronic pain patients and going through goals that they want to succeed in the next 4 to 6 weeks or next 3 months, and we talk about those kind of things. And that's a part of the job that I enjoy doing, but it does take a lot of time, and the reimbursement might not even be there for it. But it's just something to keep in mind. Like, so those are some services that I offer. Um, and just keep in mind, you want to start, in my opinion, start small and then grow from there. Do you want to do cash or self pay stuff or not? There's a lot of things that you can do self pay for now, and especially with the hybrid med spas with the cosmetics coming into play, that's great. And I have my own opinions about that. But again, are you diluting yourself out if you're we'll say, a pulmonologist and you're doing Botox? Like, where's the connection there? Um, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I find that a lot more people are going to the self pay thing, or they're looking for ways to have self pay, whether that's selling supplements or CBD oil or CBD creams and all these other ways to make extra revenue for the practice, which is a big deal. If you're in a practice, you want to make sure that you have enough revenue to keep the lights on, make sure that your employees are paid, make sure that you're getting compensated as well. So, you know, are you going to do everything strictly insurance, which is not a bad plan either, because every patient that you're coming in, you're going to have an insurance contract within. You're making sure that your front office is making sure that their insurance is valid, that you're getting paid appropriately on time and the appropriate amounts and all that stuff. So it's very valuable to have that thought. I mean, my practice is a hybrid practice, and it's working for me right now. I think predominantly over 70-80% is um, insurance based, and then there's a smaller 20, maybe 30% at best. Actually, if I think back, it's probably more 90 insurance and maybe 10% cash self pay. So it's something else to think about. Um, Renting versus buying. If you buy a place, you're building the equity into the place, but you also had to take a bigger loan from the front versus renting for a few years. I opted into rent for 5 years, and I'm sure there's an option to extend at the end of it, depending on the terms. But ideally, I think going into buying something, or buying or having your own place could be beneficial in the long run, especially if you find partners that are willing to work with you and have the same mindset and ideas to help your practice grow. Identifying, the representatives you want to work with. I think this is a very valuable point, because not always do you get along with the representatives for companies. Um, Sometimes these companies would like partnerships, and it's depending on what you provide for them. So it's not a always a I help you, you help me. It's more of a they come to you because they know that you can provide all these services and they can make money off of it. But if they're not pulling their weight, then what kind of partnership is that? What kind of uh, camaraderie do you have with those kind of situations? Again, this is just kind of things that I've learned. I've been burned in the past several times where I felt like I was getting along with the company. I met some of the higher ups in the company and was having good conversations and challenging them. They're challenging me. We're having, and relatively speaking, like nothing that would be hurtful for people, but to these companies, just bringing ideas like, hey, this is what I think, or this is what I see. Um, and obviously, you can think faster than actions are taking place. But so I just kind of spitball some ideas, and down the road, it's I don't hear from these representatives anymore, and not that it hurts me. I'm happy enough being busy where I'm at, and if I so need a certain device for a certain patient at the right time, as I harp quite often, then I will go after them and get that information. Um, but I don't hang everything on these representatives. I don't expect them to do anything for me. It's helpful when they do, and it's helpful when they identify patients in the community. Um, and I agree with them, but I'm not going to throw in a certain device just because a rep is my friend or a partner. The partnership is established. So, anyways, that's about all I had to say right now about this. Thoughts and ideas that I've thought about over the past couple of years. There's a ton more. I'm just trying to give this in a short 3 video series of the topic. I think it's important. I would love more people to reach out with more questions that they might have. But these are kind of questions that I've been getting as I have more friends trying to start their own practices after they've been in the workforce for 2 to 5 years now. They're like, I think I'm ready to do it. I have money saved up. So, everyone's a little different, and maybe they'll take my advice, maybe they won't. I don't necessarily want this to look like, hey, I know everything. Listen to me. Listen to me. I think I'm constantly evolving and understanding and challenging my own ideas. And do I know anything about this, or is this right? At least I'm doing the best I can to do this, and it's been helping me grow, and it's been a lot of reflection over the past few months, especially on these topics. So, anyways, I hope everyone's having a good year so far. I know spring is hopefully gonna pull right around the corner. We have some good weather, and hopefully the summer won't be too brutal for us. All right. So, anyone out there has questions, feel free to drop me some messages in my direct messages. Drop some comments below, and if you have anyone else that you might find this video helpful for, have them subscribe. You subscribe, and happy to talk to you guys more. All right, take care. Bye.